Hey everyone, this is Mike from the Comic Book Trove here today with another book review, and today I'm going to be talking about a classic Batman story collected here in Deluxe edition format. This is an oversized hardcover. We're looking at Batman Year One by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli as the writer and artist respectively. Now this is a very popular, well-known, highly regarded Batman story. It has been pretty much for 36 years now, whatever it is, since it came out originally in the mid-80s. And it's probably going to be on just about any list if you were to look online for something along the lines of best ever Batman stories, best Batman comics or graphic novels, any words to that effect. This is probably going to show up somewhere in most people's rankings of Batman stories. So I thought I would take a look at it today and just kind of give an overview of this particular deluxe edition and talk a little bit about the story too. So spoiler alert for Batman Year One if you've never checked this out before. And I do recommend you do if you have any interest in Batman. I think this is a great kind of starting point, or at least a great origin story to read anyway. Although the origin of Batman I think is very well known by most people now anyway, regardless of whether you've read this. But this is pretty much the definitive take on it in my opinion, and I think it really holds up for the most part. The dust jacket here is a pretty simple design really. You've got that image by David Mazzucchelli of Batman obviously. The spine just giving you the title of the book and the creator names. And the back giving a few kind of little review quotes and your blurb down there giving you a bit of information about the story. Feel free to pause if you want to have a look at that and read it. Yeah, so this deluxe edition, I think it's nice. I liked the look of it when I saw it a while back when I picked it up. And so I'd had the story, I think, in trade paperback for quite a while, but I thought I would upgrade to this book here. Because, you know, generally deluxe editions, omnibuses, they're kind of my thing, really. If you've seen any of my videos and if you just took a look through my list of videos, that probably isn't too hard to guess. I do like this wraparound image on the book itself. It's pretty simple, but a quite striking image of the Batman. And, yeah, so that was pretty cool. So let's take a look inside, talk a little bit about Year One. As I said, spoiler alert, just in case you don't want to know anything about this book. May talk about something or show something off that ruins something if you don't want to know anything. So fair warning. Yeah, so what is Year One? Well, I've touched upon it already. It's an origin story for Batman. More specifically, this was the reboot of Batman following on from DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths event, which happened in 1985 from creators Marv Wolfman and George Perez. Following on from that huge cataclysmic event, a huge portion of DC's continuity and universe was rebooted and revamped, and Batman was one of those characters. Frank Miller took on the job here of writing the new origin story, or the refined origin story, you could probably call it, because really it's not entirely different to what came before, but it's just, I suppose it was just modernized for the time. And yeah, Mazzucchelli came on as the artist. Miller didn't want to draw this one as well as write it. He wanted to focus just on the writing. Of course, he has partnered with Mazzucchelli, probably most famously as well as on this, with on the Daredevil Born Again story, which is another story I need to talk about when I get to the Daredevil Companion Omnibus by Miller and Mazzucchelli and Romita Jr. But here and now, let's not get too distracted. Let's look at this story. So this is really quite a short story. You know, it's pretty short and sweet, pretty concise. It covers, as the title of the book would probably suggest, Bruce Wayne's first year after he decides to become Batman and tackle crime in Gotham City. Now, this is a book with a split narrative perspective. So, of course, we see Bruce Wayne / Batman, but we spend just as much time throughout this story focusing on Jim Gordon as he comes to Gotham City as a cop and has to quickly get used to the fact that things are done a very specific way in Gotham. You know, it's a very corrupt city, basically. You know, the police force is not really on the level, and it's quite difficult for Jim Gordon as a kind of straight, narrow cop to adjust to the way things are done here when in a department full of essentially dirty cops. A lot of the story is written using kind of internal monologues. That's a very kind of Frank Miller trope, I think. It's something he does a lot in his different stories. He likes to do these kind of tough guy monologues that his protagonists use quite often. The artwork, I think it's pretty, well, it's very effective. You know, I think Mazzucchelli does a great job. You know, it's maybe not some of the standout artwork of all time necessarily, although you may think it is, and I wouldn't argue with you on it too much, because I do think it's very cool and it gives this book a definitive, kind of a distinctive style, I should say, and I definitely enjoy it. One thing, also touching on the artwork, the pages of this book are all matte pages, so they are not glossy pages, which you tend to find in most collected editions, certainly most omnibuses and deluxe editions these days tend to have glossy pages, but I think this was done very specifically and particularly because Mazzucchelli has always requested that any reprints of this book use matte pages because he believes that his artwork really looks best on that type of paper. I would agree. I think it looks really cool. And it's just quite nice to flip through a book with matte pages. You know, they have quite a nice feel to them. They feel quite thick. It's pretty good. Good quality. I like it. Yeah, so the story then. So, as I say, we've got Jim Gordon's struggle to establish himself as a cop, surrounded by corrupt cops. You've got Bruce Wayne, who is trying to figure out how he's going to do what he wants to do. He's got his crusade, effectively. You know, that's what it really is. His obsession, you could even call it. His mission. He wants to obviously tackle crime in Gotham. He needs to find a way to do it. And in here we see a lot of the inspiration for how he gets his earliest ideas. He gets this classic kind of image here of the bat breaking through the window. That being the way that he gets the idea of taking on the form of the bat, of a bat, to strike fear into criminals because they are a cowardly and superstitious lot. And from there he's just, yeah, trying to figure things out. It's really interesting. So we also get appearances by, although quite brief, she doesn't play a huge role in the story, I'll say, but there are appearances by Selina Kyle in here. We see a little bit of focus on her as she is working as a prostitute during this time. By the end of the story, she does become Catwoman, just as Batman is really truly becoming, Bruce Wayne is really truly becoming Batman as well. This is a really cool scene though. At a meeting, I think it's the mayor or commissioner, can't quite remember. But basically it's a meeting and a get-together of a few different corrupt officials within the city. And I love this page and this panel here where Batman just kind of bursts in and effectively tells them all that he's here now. He effectively announces his arrival in quite a cool and dramatic way, and pretty much tells them that none of them are safe now because he's on the scene and he won't stand for it anymore. He's going to do something about it. So Batman, in doing that, he pretty much makes himself public enemy number one as a result, and the police are all searching for this new vigilante guy. And yeah, it's just really cool. You know, so we see a Bruce Wayne definitely very unsure of himself. He makes mistakes during this story. You know, he doesn't just put on the bat suit and immediately he's a flawless superhero. Definitely makes some errors, but at the same time, he's learning from them. You know, as he goes through here, he's learning from mistakes, and he's still doing some pretty cool stuff, including this sequence which was actually adapted for in the Batman Begins movie, where cops are chasing him into a building and he uses a swarm of bats. It's probably not the term for a collection of bats, but I'm forgetting what it is. But anyway, a huge group of bats to cover his exit, basically. It's pretty cool stuff. You've also got some personal drama and stuff going on with Jim Gordon, you know, as well as his professional storylines and centering around his job as a cop. There's also issues with his marriage. He's got a bit of a strained marriage. So he has I think he has an affair, yeah. Starts to have an affair with a colleague here. And he's got, you know, guilty conscience about that. Plenty going on in the story. To say this only runs through 4 issues. This was just Batman issues 404 to 407. As I say, it's a short story, but it packs a punch. And there's a lot of stuff going on in here. Really cool here with Batman on the glider as well. I like that. Here's Catwoman when she first shows up. In costume. Very cool. And yeah, it just really still works, I think, for the most part. Just about every element of it still works for me as the definitive Batman origin story. I think this is always going to be the story that I would read and recommend that people go to and read themselves if they wanted to experience a Batman origin story. There are other takes on it, of course, and other takes on stories set early in Batman's history that are worth reading. But I think that on the whole, this really works as a great chronological starting point for the Batman. I like this ending sequence as well. Just want to show this off. Just to show that at the end of the story, we effectively do have the start of the status quo of Gordon starting to work with Batman. Another scene, actually, that was adapted for the end of Batman Begins. That film took a few elements from this story, actually. And as I say, not too surprising because of the fact that it does work so well as an origin story, really. Simple as that. In the back we get a few extras here, some different sketches and character designs. Pretty cool stuff. But, you know, because it's a short story, it's a pretty thin book. You know, there's no getting away from that. It's not one of the bigger deluxe editions, so I don't know if for any reason you maybe have a thing against picking up thin collected editions. I don't know. If size matters to you in that sense, then fair enough. But yeah, I think this is a story well worth having. I don't know if this deluxe edition is still in print, but I believe there is an absolute edition of it. And I'm very sure you can still pick it up in trade paperbacks. I'm pretty sure this is one of those stories that DC just keeps constantly in print and in circulation because there's always demand for it. People are always looking up best Batman comics to start with, and as I say, this is pretty much going to pop up in most people's lists somewhere, so it makes sense from DC's point of view to keep it available in at least one format at all times, and that tends to be trade paperback. But yeah, hopefully that was an interesting look at this deluxe edition. As I say, it is a thin book, so it's a pretty quick one to look through. You can see that there. It's only about 100 and maybe about 100 pages, 100 and something pages, not much more than that. But a great story, and a great Batman story, absolutely no doubt about that. Let me know what you think about Batman Year 1 though. Have you got this edition? Is this one you would like to get if you could? Maybe you've got the Absolute and prefer it in that format. That would make sense, I know. It's a good way to collect this as well. They're just not personally books that I get, Absolutes, but it's nothing against them personally. It's just not what I choose to collect. But yeah, thanks as always for watching. Appreciate you sticking through the video if you've made it this far through. Happy to hear any thoughts and comments you have to share about Batman Year 1. Any other Batman stories you might like me to cover. I can't promise I have them all, but any that I do have I will surely get to at some point. Yeah, so thanks again as always. I'll be back again soon to discuss something else.